One of the greatest things about living in a northern cold climate is just how much we look forward to the spring and the summer, and just what a dramatic difference a bed can make. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at this landscape bed when it was in its prime this summer. So let's go ahead and get started. First one up here, look at that nice deep Merlot color. This is dark magic sedum. Now sedum, I think, are one of the best perennials that you can have in your landscape. If you had to just pick one genus of perennials, sedums might be it, because there's so many different leaf colors, so many different flower colors. You've got different sprawling sizes. You've got the upright varieties. So just a tremendous amount of choices. You gotta look into sedum for sure. Okay, next plant up here. This is an orange gnome Multicross. You know, it gets about 15 to 18 inches tall and wide, but look at that nice orange color. You can see quite a bit of space left around that in that little mulch area. Into the bed here, look at those large slates there, that flagstone. Now, how this bed all came together. Originally back here, I had kind of a lower area where the water was collecting after spring, sometimes after a heavy rain. And I couldn't really do anything with the grade to make it flow off because I had quite a few existing valves under there for the irrigation system. So I went ahead and I got these oversized flagstone slates and I built this path, and I just absolutely love how it turned out. So just a great way to make a natural pathway like that. And now if I ever have to get after those valve boxes, I'll just go ahead and I can just lift up one of those slates, pull off the cover, and I can work on that area. Next one up, we've got a hybrid lily there. They're sometimes called tiger lilies. Here we're coming up on gold standard hosta. I think one of the best locations for hostas is when they can pick up that early east sun in the morning and then some of the later western sun. And that's exactly what happens here. This one avoids the hottest part of the day. It's on the north side. I like to use a lot of these metal containers that you see here. And this is a weeping blue Alaska cedar. Since the root system on plants is not as hardy as the above ground portion, what I do, I just leave some of the nursery stock I buy in those containers. But now come winter, since we easily drop well below 0 Fahrenheit in our area, we have to take them out of there. And I just put them in an artificial storage type area. And you can watch that video, I'll put it in the description. That whole process, some of the different varieties of evergreens and different trees I've grown. And now we're looking at black lace elderberry. What a beautiful purple, foliage. A lot of great things to talk about on this, and this is what it looks like in the winter though. Not much to see, but I call this a sub-shrub. This is pretty much died back to the ground on us every year, but it's such a fast grower. That's what elderberries are. They're fast growers. This thing comes back with a vengeance. Now, hopefully we won't lose some of this growth on the top this year, and we'll be able to see some of that beautiful pinkish white flower that you get on that black lace elderberry. Okay, now we're looking at just a little gold moss sedum. Now this one's gonna self-seed, and this one starts coming up in a lot of areas you may not want it. I'm letting it naturalize in quite a few different areas, different pathways, and I just love the effect. And I usually just leave those little spent flower heads on. They kind of turn brown, but it's really got a nice yellow spring flower. Okay, we're coming up on Primo Arborite. I've got one other little one like this, and initially I planted a bigger one, but it burned up in the winter. And I know this is probably labeled hardy zone 4. I just didn't have any luck with the bigger one I bought. And this is gonna be the first winter, it looks like, that we don't have snow cover on this one. So I'm a little bit concerned that it's gonna make it. So far, so good, but it's been rooted in there now a few years, so that'll help us. Check out that little rock, that boulder right there. Now, I found that rock in one of the loads I brought in, and I just knew immediately that was going to make a nice little bird bath, just a natural one. So if we get a heavy rain, get that water in there, last several days, the birds just absolutely love it. And there's nothing better, in my opinion, than just a nice natural bird bath. Similar to this one here, this is a granite bird bath. I think this was made by Stone Age Creations, great little company that makes all types of different things out of, well, stone. That's something else I just love to do, is have mulch and rock intermixed in different combinations within landscape beds, as well as look at that boulder along over right there. I came across a nice little kind of a sparkly grayish white granite pile at a landscape supply center, and they had about 4 to 5 tons left, so that's kind of where I highlighted it within these beds. Columnar green juniper. Now this was purchased this way. It's been manipulated and pruned in that form. If you were just to let it go, it would just turn into a upright green juniper. Now I've got this one. This is actually planted in a little bit shorter metal container that you see there. And I just keep it sheared about once a season, a little bit shaggy there. That was the spring's growth. But we also take this one and I just lay it down you know, in that artificial setting where we can keep the root temperature elevated enough where it doesn't die out. And this has been in here now, oh gosh, I would say about 5 to maybe even closing in on 6 or 7 years. Okay, here we've got little giant arborvitae. Now this one can get about 4 feet by 4 feet. You can see by the picture that that had some snow load on it. And I just kind of left it alone. Sometimes you can tie them with some twine or something, pull it back together, but it's filling in quite nicely. I've never sheared it. A little bit of a shaggy look. And that cocoa moss that you see there, it's pretty weathered now, but that's something the birds, they'll actually just rip that thing apart by the end of the season. They love it in their nesting. So that cocoa fiber, you know, that's a neat way to have your planters, and you help support those birds on some of the things they need. And here we've got vinca vine. Now that came out of last year's container, and the vinca vine, if it's got some protection, that'll overwinter in our area, even though it's, you know, primarily sold as an annual. Okay, Japanese tree lilac. Yeah, this is a great later blooming lilac. Tough plant. What I've done here, this thing's really starting to take off now. My goal is I want to have a multi-trunked look in the Japanese tree lilac. If you look at these, they're just beautiful for that effect where you lift up those lower branches. The eventual goal, have that kind of cascade over this entire bed as we keep lifting up those lower branches to create that ornamental trunk. This one's also got a nice bark, what they call a prominent lenticel, just kind of that whitish, horizontal looking little marking there. I did another video on some lilacs where we talked about several of the different varieties of the Japanese tree lilac, ivory silk being one of the most common that gets a little bit more upright. This is the straight species. It's actually going to get much wider than ivory silk. Again, I'll throw a link in the description if you're interested in that. Take a look back here. This is the next video we're going to work on. We're going to work our way down this narrow vein here. Here's a photo from the upper part of the deck where you can see where we first started putting this in, and there's not as many varieties out there, but you probably noticed some of the garden art, the circle, that copper art form back there. That's all I've got for this video. Hope I gave you some ideas. Maybe you found some plants you like. We'll see you again next garden hike.